Hey everyone. I had a delay. I don't know what I was just doing just now. Oh my God, we have another episode. My friend Letitia Watson is back for another episode with Pillow Talk Unplugged tonight. Again, this is not an interview, just two gals having a good
Oh,
conversation about childhood trauma and growing up with our boomers. Okay, so if anybody has been in our generation, what is it called again? Gen X and
so we're millennials and
okay,
okay, well, millennials, Gen Z
Gen Z. I think that's what we are,
or
right?
Gen
Gen Z,
X. No,
Gen X,
millennials and Gen X.
Gen X. Okay, we're Gen X. So that's the thing. I want to just talk about it because I feel like there's a line of that trauma that came from growing up in that era. It causes us to have an adverse effect on us as adults now in this time. And now we're dealing with our children and they're on a whole different playing field. The things that they go through, we've never went through. It's no understanding. And to me, I feel like this is like a softer generation. Remember how we had to always be the tough generation? Anything our parents say, we just had to deal with it.
I think
Hmm.
I think we so our group,
Hmm.
I think we're responsible for how our kids are responding. I think what we did, we went from one extreme to another extreme
Hmm.
instead of kind of like just finding that balance.
Hmm.
For example, like a lot of times when, I gave uh, material things,
Hmm.
monetary things to my sons, a
Hmm.
lot of it was, because I didn't get it. And
Right.
so I would, or I want them to have a life that I didn't have. And so I'm giving them all of these things. However, well, I'll just put it out there.
Right.
My kids weren't doing the appropriate things to get
Right.
so I'm going out of my way. I'm breaking my neck to give
Hmm.
them this life that I didn't have yet. And still they weren't even meeting me halfway. And so then you're frustrated, you
Hmm.
know, but I think that all comes from how we grew up.
Yep. That's definitely it because you got to think. Remember when our parents used to take us out to McDonald's or Wendy's or we'll eat out? That was like a privilege then, right? It was a
Yeah.
privilege. It was like, oh, I'm going out. My mom is taking us to Wendy's. Like we would
I look,
really go
oh,
ahead.
or 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 you would ask, like, Mom, can we go to McDonald's? And she like, you got McDonald's money.
Money, that part. So then when you finally got to go, you're like, what? Mom is taking it. I mean, she would make it like a field trip almost. We would get
Yeah.
ready. She'll come in from work. She'll get ready, and we would. Sometimes we didn't have a car, so she would take the bus, and we would go to Wendy's and sit in Wendy's and eat. And now with my kids, Wendy's is right across the street.
Yeah, and it's
I don't.
but here's but
Mhm,
here's
go
the
ahead.
thing. Because we gave so much, like my
Hmm.
kids, Wendy's, whatever. Like I have a niece, right?
Hmm.
My youngest niece.
Hmm.
Well, not my youngest. Anyway, anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
girl, she asked me for she said she wanted lobster
Oh.
because when
Uh,
she's with us,
mhm,
it's very rare that we're eating at McDonald's or we're eating at
mhm.
Wendy's. We're eating at regular restaurants. She eats like whatever we eat, she eats. So for
Right.
her, it's nothing to say. I want steak and lobster, and we're like, hmm, possibly,
You're legit right.
But then again, like I really I feel like it comes from that place where
Hmm.
we were denied, and I mean honestly it could have honestly been, our parents didn't have it,
They didn't. Right.
they didn't have it.
Hmm.
And like I said, we went from one extreme to a completely different, and we need to find that middle ground.
And that balance, because now I tell my children, I'm like, you don't know how it was to grow up in a household where a lot of things were limited. I remember being embarrassed about food stamps. My mom would give me that book. Remember that book? I don't
Girl, the
who's
paper.
listening. The papers. Okay. So we used to get the food stamps. Now, this is something that and even though it's not trauma, but still I had to go through it. So she would give us the book. I would have to get the exact amount because either we had bread, lunch meat, whatever we had to do. And we had to go to the corner store, and she would give me the book and tell me to go down to the store and get the food. And when I say that was the most embarrassing walk of shame for me, because back then food stamps was looked at as like the poorest thing you can have. If you got it, people were teasing you from here. I don't know about anybody else, but they used to get on us about having food stamps. Okay. And then it's like you walk in the store and then you have to, I'm like standing around, walking around the store trying to make sure everybody leave before I can actually use the book because it wasn't real cash. People can identify that money was different from real money. So it was just like, it was embarrassing. Now, food stamps.
You got a card.
Yeah, you got the card now, and people don't even look at it as an embarrassing thing. Mm-hmm. People that are like working and don't get help, we're looking for it. We're like, some because I need it. So that's why I just said there's a lot of childhood things that I know as a woman now in my age, I look back and I was like, life, I don't know if I feel like life was unfair in a way, because I feel like they got so much privilege. Go ahead.
Yeah, privilege, because I also, like, our kids lack that grind. We had that determination. We had that, and it came from the hardness from our parents. That nothing was handed to you. You had to work for every single thing. And it allows you to appreciate, what you did get, what you did have. But again, going back to like growing up in that struggle, like it makes you into a different type of beast. Like these kids now, it's like, you're crying about what?
What?
But again, it goes back from the hardness of our parents. You either sink or swim. Figure it out.
Yep.
There was nobody there to coddle you.
No.
There was nobody there to there was no empathy. Empathy where?
Where? Exactly. Listen, and that's the thing. I have a story, but I'll let you finish. But I have something to piggyback off of that. As far as empathy, it was lacked in our time of growing up. I'm gonna tell you, it was lacked. My mom did not actually, and I have nothing against my mother. I love her for all she has done. She has done an amazing job to what she could do. But she never said she loved me until I was going in to have my son. He's 16 now. When she said that, I'd never forget. I was going in for the C-section and she reached in and she said, okay, when they were getting ready to take me back, she's like, I love you.
Yeah, what?
What? I thought the baby, I'm like, oh my God, my baby gonna die. I was like, something gonna happen to me in the surgery room. Why did she tell me that? I could not think about the fact that, wow, my mom actually did say it. I'm thinking, why did she say it? What made her say that all of a sudden? And it just blew my mind that that's where my thought went, instead of thinking, wow, she did express herself, instead of thinking an immediate tragedy was going to happen because she told me that she loved me for the first time. And I was thinking to myself, throughout that whole surgery, I should be focused on the baby coming. But I'm thinking, why did she say that? What was the reason for it? Because I've never experienced it. And now my daughter is like an over hugger, over loving, and it's like, oh, here she comes again. Go ahead.
Right. Because it feels like I'm trying to be more of an affectionate parent, and I'm trying to be more doing this new thing with allowing my kids to talk and hearing their thoughts, and so all of this is new. But like my boys, for whatever reason, my boys are like affectionate. They like hugs and stuff. And it feels weird. Like, I'm gonna hug you because I know you need this hug.
Right. But it's like yes, that's the thing. Like, I noticed that my sister doesn't like to hug. It's a foreign thing for her. Like, you're too much into her space. So when they're hugging, I don't mind embracing it because I'm like, okay, I don't want her to feel uncomfortable. But this is like every 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh, you're back again for another hug. All right. I'm like, oh. And then she's like, I love you. I'm like, I love you too. I said this 20 times today. But because I'm not used to it, it became uncomfortable. Girl, I don't know. How was it for you? Like, I can go for days.
So I will say I love my mom in case she's watching. You're the best. But
Mm-hmm.
like my mom and a lot of the moms from that area, from that era. So okay, so y'all know I do notes, guys.
Yes. Let's get into your notes.
I do notes. I do notes. Okay. So when we're talking about boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about people born from 1946 to 1964.
Right.
Generation X, I believe, is 65 through maybe the 70s. The 70s, because then millennials
come after, right?
Correct me, guys, and if I'm wrong. Okay, so baby boomers. Baby boomers are 1946 to 1964. So when we're referring to them, that's that group, right? So then if you have a boomer parent, 9 times out of 10, you grew up in the 80s, the 90s.
Right.
So back then, like my mom wasn't affectionate. Well, not to me, per se. But my mom, I believe she showed her love in providing. My mom was like top tier provider. My mom worked 3 jobs. 3.
Ooh.
Yeah, Sherry was
working.
Mom. And through that, she showed me, work ethic. That's where I got that from. That work ethic, that grind, that you just don't sit and wait for things to happen. You got to get out there and make it happen. No excuse. 3 kids, single mom, she made it happen. So that's where I get that from, and that independence. I also learned, how to fight, how to, not allow life to just do whatever it wants to do with you. But I'm more, compared to my mom, I'm more, so like my kids, I'm more emotional. I talk about my feelings. I talk about, whereas like, my mom, she's like that generation. Feelings, what?
Where?
What kind of feelings? We're the generation that I believe we are the generational curse breakers.
Right.
Our generation. Because we're looking at a lot of what our parents did. We're looking at, I really didn't like that. We're standing up and we're saying, it's not okay to be toxic. Like, I want to heal from that. Not only that, but I don't want my kids to experience what I experienced. I don't want my kids to feel like no one's paying attention to them. So like a lot of us millennials, we're in therapy.
Big time. Like, I rely on it because I am messed up. Like, in some ways of things that I think about, I'm really gone, Letitia. And I'm thinking, how is it that the love she has for her grandchildren was nothing I ever experienced?
But you know what? And I noticed that because like my mom, the grandmother, I'm like, what the heck? Where is Cassius Clay? Where's
right?
Where's where's the gunslinger? Where's that at?
Come on.
But I will say this. Okay. So as I was doing my research, so I used to volunteer, and I used to volunteer for the YWCA in Norfolk.
Right.
And the YWCA, if you guys don't know, they support victims of domestic violence. They have a wonderful program there. If you want to volunteer, Awesome place to go. But anyway, in order to, volunteer, you have to go through their training program. And then they don't just talk about domestic violence, but they talk about racism, all kinds of prejudices. So it's amazing. So anyway, we were talking about racism. And unfortunately, in America, racism is normally focused, towards African American and other minorities. Anyway, so we watched this video, and it was a video done by done by Dr. Joy I'm gonna mess up her last name, so I'm gonna spell it.
Right.
Begruy. And she talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Wow, that's different.
Okay. We're about to go there.
Okay, so let's get into it, because I'm like, what?
So she actually, y'all, she actually coined this phrase, post-traumatic slave syndrome. She coined this phrase. So basically what it is, it's a condition that exists when a population has experienced multi-generational trauma resulting from centuries of slavery and continues to experience oppression and institutionalized racism today. So when we're talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome, if we think about it, African Americans, because I can't speak to any other race.
Right.
We experience 400 years of slavery.
Right.
Within that, you got people being captured, you got them being sold, you got them being beat, raped, families are broken up,
right.
Families destroyed. Okay.
Degraded. I mean, to the max, right?
And this is just simplifying it because okay. Now, when slavery ended, and this is a question for you and a question for our viewers today. When slavery ended, did anyone present the idea of therapy to the slaves?
No, they didn't have that option. And neither did our parents that are boomers or their parents before them. Therapy is not a thing of the past. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
Right.
No one came to a freed slave and said, hey, do you want to sit down and talk to a therapist to process what you're feeling and to process your thoughts and to process the hell that you've been through? The 4 centuries.
Right.
Do you want to talk about it? Absolutely not. They were free and just go on about your business.
Right.
So in order for them to survive slavery, they had to come up with certain behaviors in order to survive it. So you have either adaptive behaviors, survival behaviors. Right. These are, but they're the same thing, right? So one good thing that she brought up, one example that she brought up. So like and we can say whether this happened to us or not.
Right.
Okay. So present day, let's say for example that someone is affirming another kid, oh, your son is so smart. Oh, they're the brightest child in the room. They're the best up in the class. And then you'll hear an African-American mama like, yeah, but he's hard-headed. He always, messing up stuff in the room and he's right. Right.
Right.
And so the other parent is like, okay. And then the child is feeling like, well, dang, I mean, maybe I'm not, all of this and that. Okay. But let's rewind it 400 plus years. Okay.
Right.
If a slave was receiving compliments from the slave master, oh, your son, oh, he's really picking that cotton, he's really getting big, right? That would mean to that mother that, oh shoot, the slave master, he's looking at my child, he has eyes on my child, he's looking at because once again, like, we're property, we're not people, right? So he's about to sell my son. So I don't want him to sell my son. So this is what I'm going to do. Oh no, master, he's not. Oh no, he's picking slow. He's not
Ready.
He's not moving fast. I gotta get on him all the time because
Right.
I don't want you to sell my baby
And take that baby from me, because that's the trauma behind it. So
so what happens is that, right,
right.
there is no therapy when you come out of slavery. There is nobody to tell you that, mama, you don't have to no longer survive. You no longer have to adapt, to this particular, situation anymore. You can affirm your son. You can tell him that he's smart, and nobody's going to sell your baby. Nobody says that, right? So
Right.
these things are just passed on generation to generation. And
Right.
then the issue, hold on, I wrote a note. So when it comes to us, we accept that behavior.
Right.
We coin it, oh, that's stuff that Black people do.
Right.
Not realizing that all we're doing is we're just passing on this generational curse.
Basically, and that's basically what I'm getting from it, is that they're putting that on us to put it on to our kids. Because there's sometimes, did you ever feel like when you're lashing out at your child and you say, oh, you always doing stupid stuff, that is just so dumb of you to do that? That's because that's what we spent our lives hearing. You get what I'm saying? Spent our time hearing. No, it wasn't that we are dumb. Maybe at the situation that you done, something that you did wasn't pleasing, but how do you say that without repeating what you've been told your entire life? So now when you tell your kids, they're like, well, why do I have to be so dumb because I spilled the milk off the table? That was an accident. Go ahead.
And it came, but see that it came from somewhere.
Right.
Well, I'm doing this because I saw my mama do it, and my mama did it because she saw her mama do it, and it just kept going, and we're not even realizing like what we're doing. And so, I also wrote this. Okay, so then after slavery, we now have Jim Crow, and if anybody is aware of what Jim Crow is, it was just another modernized form of it was a more acceptable, form of racism. I mean, all of these laws, all of these things that you could not do, just continuing to make us feel like we're nothing but dirt. Yeah, you're not a slave, but you're still, and so Jim Crow lasted for 95 years. I don't think people realize how long Jim Crow
that lasted. Because even with you saying, I'm like, 95 years. Wait a minute.
95 years. So, so if you can imagine, just with the African American community, I can't speak to anyone else because I don't know.
Right.
Slavery. You get out of slavery, Jim Crow. And Jim Crow lasted for 95 years. So if you can think about these survival behaviors, so now Jim Crow brings along another form of anxiety for the adults, for parents, because if your son, Emmett Till, if they say he whistled at a white woman, oh, we're gonna hang your baby
for that.
We're gonna beat him. We're gonna beat him until you can't even identify him. So there's a new fear that has just risen. So we no longer have to worry about, we're no longer worrying about master. Now it's just any and everybody, right? So that's a new fear. That's a new anxiety that is like building up within the community. And so Jim Crow ended in 1965.
Right.
The boomers, our parents, were born between 1946 and 1964. They were in
that whole generation. So now with that, Letitia, you're saying that with them being in that era, they're basically was raised on paranoia, basically.
Anxiety, fear.
Yep.
So when you think about and I'm not saying that, I mean, even if we can explain why certain things happen, I'm not saying that it's right, but a lot of times what I try to do is just try to understand, empathy, right? So now if you think about a mother and a daughter, right, in African American community, we all knew that, and we even say it now, that Black women are the most devalued human walking of the
The
earth.
earth. Okay.
Slavery, I mean, they would rape us, they would do whatever they wanted to us.
Right.
Jim Crow, same. If they wanted to take us and who would come to your defense? If someone tried to come to defend you, then they would die, they would get hung, they would get
Yeah.
It's just so. I don't know if anyone ever heard like your mom calling you fast.
Right. That I used to, oh, you want to be out there and you want to do this. So, and I'm just like, I'm not. It's like I used to spend so much time defending that purpose, that comment.
But that fear that you have a black daughter, and God forbid she's she's shapely.
Then
God forbid she's cute.
Right.
And you have to send her out here into this world, and that our parents were like brought up by the generation that had to deal with the civil rights, they had to deal with Jim Crow for real, and their mothers like had to protect them. And so they're not, and then we're not explaining that I'm treating you this way because I'm afraid that if you go out here and the wrong person looks at you, then you're going to be snatched up and you're going to be we just get fast. Yeah,
but to speak on that, I think sometimes then you have that generation that sweeps it under the rug, right? When that situation do happen, because remember, those booming men were always itemizing younger women, and they would like the faster girls in a sense, right? So with my mom, not to say that she's a bad mom, still don't know to this day what to expect from it, right? So can you hear me, Letitia? It looked like you froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So on this very moment, I will never forget it. I was 12, I think, 6th grade. I went to a teacher, told her there was some things going on that I wasn't comfortable with. I was just like, a family member of mine is not doing right by me. I don't like how it feels. It's uncomfortable. And so I went to my teacher, and then, when you go to a teacher in the school system, they're going to bring it out in the open, right? So boomer parent. So after I told her this, it got out. And so we were in a different county. So then my cousin that was involved in this situation, he was living in the state of Philadelphia. So they ended up having to go to Philadelphia to address it. So I said, okay. They went over there. Mind you, I'm only 12 years old. So we get there and the police are there. I explain everything that happened. The social worker, I think the social worker was there, asked me everything that was going on. And then they called him up. He was down in his room or whatever, called him up and everything. And it's blank to me a little bit now because I'm older. So trying to remember at 12 is a little bit harder. So at that time, she has her sister, so they all are part of that boomers generation, right? And she says to me, I remember the officer saying, well, what would you like to do? Would you like to press charges? And my mom said no. At that very moment, I said, what in the world? She said, I want you to get him counseling because he needs help. And I said, this is the part of not coming to a person's defense because I'm crying out for help. And you showed your loyalty to your sister because you told her to get the son help. No, he needs to be in somebody's jail because this is something he's doing. And I don't think he'll ever stop. But I'm only 12 at this time, right? So I was so hurt at that moment. And I felt like I could never forgive her because I'm like, why did you say no? Why didn't you say, yes, press charges? I want him to go. He was hurting me. He's not making me feel comfortable. And she said because she didn't want her sister to lose another son because she had already had a child that passed. I said, well, he passed away because he had an illness, not because he was touching younger children and doing harmful things to other girls. Well, she didn't do anything about it. So I spent the rest of my life now because she swept it under the rug. Now I'm just walking around like, oh God, this is, so do you know how that made me feel internally? So now here we are years later, and it comes out again with another girl. Now this mom is taking it to the extreme because she's a part of the little girl is a part of the newer generation. So now this is getting blown out of proportion. And I remember someone saying, can you hear me, Letitia?
I can hear you.
Okay. I remember someone saying, well, this is what Stacey was saying years ago. But at that time, it didn't matter. It did not matter at that time when I was crying out for help. It didn't matter because you thought that it was okay to sweep it under the rug, save him because you think he needs counseling. But obviously, if he needed the counseling that they gave him, he still did the same thing. And here we are years later, and he did something else to someone else. And now it's all over the tabloids. He's all over the place. He got to register himself as whatever because he done crossed the line. Had you did this at the time that I did say something, then maybe he wouldn't have never carried it to do it to someone else because I was trying to stop it then. That was me at 12 trying to stop it. So I never forgave her for that because I'm just like, what happened? Why didn't you just not let him get away with that? And now my paranoia, every man that looks at my girl, even with my significant other, if he looks at her, I'm like, I will tell Cheyenne, put shorts on, make sure you have on long pants, cover up yourself, don't have this hanging out. Like I am constantly paranoid. This man does not have that intention. He's not even thinking that way, but because I'm paranoid, I have to watch. I can't even let her live and be the girl that she wants to be because I want to make her a nun because of what I've been through. Because of a booming parent sweeping it under the rug and thinking that was solving the problem. Not to say that it's not happening now, but I just feel like that generation did not feel the need to fight that aspect, right?
But we're talking about the generation of what goes on in my house stays in my house.
That to me is just a saying that just doesn't resonate with me now in this time.
It is so toxic.
Like unbelievable.
How many of us experience just horrible things at home and you want to say something, but it's that fear. If I do say something, I'm going to get in trouble, when I go home. Or if I do say something, nobody's going to do anything, anyhow. So, I mean, why does it matter? And so we learn how to we learn how to create secrets. Mm-hmm. and you hold on to these secrets and you learn how to, I mean, Stacey, first of all, like, I am so sorry that happened to you. And I am so sorry that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're 12 and then it's like, something like that happens. And how do you not feel like, is it my fault? Did I do something? And there's no one telling you, no, it wasn't you, this person, like. And then, first of all, the fact that you even had the courage to stand up and say something at 12. Mm-hmm. And so my question to you and anybody else, who had a similar experience, mm-hmm. What did that do with the relationship between your mother and yourself? What did that do to your relationship?
The trust level was definitely gone. So as soon as I got a chance to leave home, I was out at 18, never went back. Because I was just like, you know what? But then it didn't prepare me because I went out and now it became a thing where every man is like, oh, whatever they want to do. That's all they want to do. That's all they want to do. So I found myself getting accustomed to it because I was already exposed. I was already there. So it was just like, I left. I could not bring myself to trusting her again because I'm like, I'm crying out for help. And then after the police leave, he goes and makes waffles and I have to sit down and eat the waffles he made. So now yes, what? Honey. Yes. So I was like, what the heck? And they're talking. My mom and her sister, I don't know if they were talking out in the porch or wherever they went. And then I'm sitting here. I ate, we left, we went back on the bus, went home. Nobody said nothing else. Nothing else was said. So then that was it. That's how I had to live with it. And now years later, I'm like, oh, now it makes sense because the girl is saying it now. But this is what I was trying to stop in the beginning, because this was what was going on with me. And I don't know how many other people, but I don't want, so now I have my daughter, and it's like, oh my God. I mean, when I say I'm so paranoid for her, and if you've seen Cheyenne, she will have the potential to be a shapely girl. She's a beautiful girl. So now I'm paranoid, like, and this will affect me dating, because I don't trust a person, or they're coming in. So it can't go any further unless, I'm like, oh no, don't come to my house because I got a daughter in there and I don't want you to, and these are the things that are going on that people are not aware of. But then when I looked at my mom, I'm like, what was the point? I should just let him keep on doing it, because this solved nothing. He's not getting the counseling, because if he did have counseling that helped him, then this wouldn't have happened again. So it definitely put me in a different mindset. Now I'm an adult. I can't be around him. It's uncomfortable.
So,
yeah. I can laugh about it now, but honey,
this might turn into a therapy session.
Okay, because I was just like, but that's what happens when you're dealing with a parent that don't have the empathy for those things. But she also went through it. My mom.
So once again, because nobody stood up for her,
right?
Nobody came to her defense.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it hurt her to her core to have to go through that herself, she just passed it. She just passed it on. Like, once again, like, going back to this post-traumatic slave syndrome, we've been getting raped for centuries,
and it was okay.
It wasn't okay, but you couldn't say nothing about it.
Right, because and then they grew up in this generation where, you ever heard that generation be seen and not heard?
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me that I can't speak on how I feel?
Stay in a child's place.
That used to burn me up, okay? Because I'm like, me staying in a child's place didn't do me no good. Why you want me always in a child's place?
Or do as I say, not as I do. What?
I'm like,
what does that mean? What does that mean? And
it goes deep. It is so traumatizing. And this is what I don't understand. Like, and then I have another thing to tell you. Even for when I was, I'm dating and dealing with men and looking at them, and they may have a parent that is a boomer parent, but they're born into this generation. They're still messed up. So they're confused because they don't know which way to take direction from. So they have a parent that was born in 64, right at the brink. So they're in that era, but they're like in the new millennium era. And so they're confused because they don't know which way to be.
Because like I said, a lot of things we just accept as as we culturally accept toxic behaviors.
Right.
Instead of calling it what it is, we say, oh, that's just something that Black people do. Like, the most toxic things that you could ever, and we laugh about it because, I mean, you'd be crying for days if you had to, like, really talk about every single thing. Like, you would be depressed about it. But we laugh about it. We make memes about it. We make TikToks about it. But it's at the end of the day, it's toxic. It's toxicity at its core.
Right.
But we embrace it. This is how we are.
Right.
And if you're the one in your family that's like, nah, like, I'm a disruptor. I mean, it's just certain things that I just refuse to continue to do.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that I do speak on. Is it always received well? No. Do I get cast out sometimes? Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's, if it doesn't feel right, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it so that I'm not going to make myself uncomfortable to make somebody else comfortable. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to, deny myself joy and happiness and peace because you want to continue to pass down these toxic parenting skills that I'm not going to do that. And so, I honestly think that, our generation, like I said, our generation, we are the generational curse breakers. Our generation, where we're doing new things, we're embracing therapy, whereas once upon a time, like, there's something else. So not only do you have the boomers, right? But if your parents were saved in the 80s and the 90s, oh.
Listen,
you got look. Not they would use that Bible as a weapon. They would pump that fear in you
and it don't work in these times. Let me tell you, because
but
these
you know
kids
why?
are
Because
fearless.
you know why? But you know why? So our generation, we were forced to go to church, right? We went to church. If the church doors were open, you were there. And because we were forced into a relationship with God, whether we realize this is happening or not, but I'm seeing it because we were forced into a relationship with God. We don't make our kids go to church. We probably, real talk, don't even talk to our kids about God. Like
some parents don't. They don't.
We don't make them if like, and for example, shoot, and look, I'm gonna be transparent. I'm going to church, like, I don't feel like, fussing, like, y'all hurry up and come on, get yourself, like, I'm trying to get there, I'm trying to get my seat, because God forbid somebody sit in my seat, and so it's like, when your kid is like, well, Ma, I don't want to go, all right,
we out, and that's it. You gone, you gonna handle your business, because I don't know if there's some level of exhaustion, but piggybacking off of that, like, even with dealing with certain family members and certain events that you had to go to that you didn't want to go to. Remember those times where they like, oh, we going to such and such house, or aunt such and such house.
I don't want to go there.
Go there. Oh, you going. So you have to fix yourself, especially like you have the other side of the family, maybe your dad's side or your mom's side. You really don't fool with them, but you got to go. It was always my dad's side for me. When they said we go, I was like, oh, I can't stand going over there. But I had to get myself together because this is what my parents want, and I had to go. Now, if my kids don't want to build a relationship with a family member or don't want to go to a family, we don't make them. I'm like, it is what it is. They don't deal with you, so I'm not going to force them. But I didn't have that choice. And had I had that choice, then maybe a lot of different things that I've went through as a child wouldn't have never happened, because I had that choice to say, no, I don't want to do. But it was looked on, it was scorned upon.
But like I said, we're at a point where we're at two different levels of extremes, right? And we need to find that middle ground. So our kids don't, how do I want to say it? They really don't know how to, like, build healthy relationships. They're quick to burn a bridge. And, I had to tell my oldest, like, listen, you don't burn bridges because you never know when you got to go back across these bridges. You never know when you're going to need somebody. It's all about what they can get.
Right.
They're very entitled.
As heck.
They're very entitled. It's very, for me, it's off-putting. Like, I don't even, but we created this.
We definitely did. And that's because we are traumatized. I remember, Letitia, I started cooking at the age of 10 years old. I was in that kitchen because my mom depended on me so much as a child. I became the co-parent instead of just living life, because she had separated from my father. She went through abusive marriage, got out of it. I commend her for leaving. So then I became the co-parent because I'm the oldest. So now I got to take care of the younger ones. So I started to cook at 10 years old. these kids, they'll cook, but it's like kicking them. But here's how my cooking went. I'll make my little rice and all that. Oh, your rice is too hard. Oh, it was too soggy. Not the fact, thank you so much that you're 10 years old and you're making a full course meal while I'm at work.
But because, okay. So another conversation, if you're the oldest daughter, because even if you're the oldest son, I'm a female, so of course I'm going to say this, but even if there was an older brother in the household, if you were the oldest daughter, you were literally the second mama, and therefore you had more responsibility in that household, even if you did have a big brother. And like like my mom, she divorced, my brother and sister's dad. And so like 7 years old, I was changing Pampers.
Listen,
7 years old, I was, staying at the house. When they divorced, I was the second mama. Like, who watched the kids when my mom was working 3 jobs?
And that was the hardest thing to do.
I didn't have a childhood.
I didn't either.
I didn't get a
chance. I mean, by the time I turned 18, I was so accustomed. And I remember me and my sister having a conversation, Letitia, and she said to me, I know if you raised me, I would have been a different person. And I said, I did raise you. I did raise you. You're just in your own way. But if you think about it, I did raise you. I mean, I was 10 years old, going from one daycare to the next daycare, picking up both kids, coming home, cooking dinner, getting everybody ready for school. And my mom's walking in the door from work and she got a hot plate. But if the rice is too hard, oh, your rice is too hard. Well, dang, Mom, thank you for the meal I provided.
But you know what? So y'all know, everybody know I'm in therapy.
Right.
But there was a conversation that I was having in reference to, for me, I do see a difference in how my mom treats me compared to how she treats my younger sister. Mm-hmm. And my mom is very critical of me. Mm-hmm. No room for error with me. But after talking it out, because like I said, I'm emotional. So I'm like, mm-hmm. But her level of expectation for me is very high.
Yeah, I got that too.
So the standard, not saying that she doesn't have a standard or expectation for my sister. I'm not saying that.
Right.
My sister, okay, I don't know all that. But as the firstborn, daughter, like her level of expectation, her mark of where she feels things that she feels that I can achieve, and like all of that, it is like she has set that standard like very high. Like she expects
certain things,
a certain standard from me. And what I can say about that standard, it has definitely pushed me. Outside of just accepting any old thing, like it has pushed me, like I'm okay, well, this is this level, okay, well, I'm going to go here, and then once I go here, I'm going to go here. I mean, maybe it is, because I'm trying to, make my mom proud, or whatever, it may be, but like it has definitely given me that drive, that thing. But like if you are the oldest sister,
right, it is hard work, just like Tanelia said. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And you don't get a girl thank you.
Nothing. You don't even get and I didn't even get a proud of you at all. And Tania said, I'm the oldest of 5, so I was mommy number 2. I could imagine. And that's how it was for me. So now, I'm looking back and I'm like, man, I'm exhausted, because even now in my adulthood, I am still carrying my family. So my mom is not the decision maker. I am, because they don't trust her judgment. So they'll come to me like, hey, what do you think about this? Because she had pushed herself so far, not that she's not the mom, because I still respect her as my mother, but she has pushed herself so far out of that motherhood to me that they trust more of my judgment than they would for her. So everything has to come through me first. My brother's having a whole emergency. I mean, life or death. My sister's like, Do he need to go to the hospital? She didn't call my mom. She called her maybe afterwards, but she had to go through me to make sure, hey, what should we do? And I'm like, even till now, my expectations of a mother is still on both ends. I never get a break. So that's traumatizing for me because I'm always at work, always at work, always at work because I'm being mom now and mom now, you know?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say, like, for me now, I am the law. Okay. Because because so, like, my mom, as she's gotten older, I will say this about my mom. She has evolved. She's become softer as she's gotten older. She's become softer. I remember saying that, like, for so long, I didn't know my mom, like the person, the individual. I just knew mom. I didn't know, like, anything from her past, or she's very, straight. But then as she's gotten older, we've built this friendship. Whereas when I was growing up, like, her and I, we did not have a good relationship at all.
Yeah.
We were oil and vinegar. Is that what it is? Oil and water, or oil and vinegar?
Oil and water.
Oil and water. Like, we bumped heads so much. And it wasn't until I became a woman, and then I started to experience motherhood, and then I just started to reflect back. Like, I'm looking, when my mom when she was a single mother, with my brother, myself, and my sister. Like, my mom was in her 20s, like late 20s, early 30s. As a single mom. And then I looking at myself, 20s, early 30s, like, could I really have raised 3 kids, working 3 jobs? Like, sometimes, honestly, like, when you're working and when you're grinding like that, like, you don't have time to. You're tired when you.
Yes, you are tired. You are tired.
When you come home, you're tired. I mean, you probably not handing out hugs. You probably, like, these are certain luxuries that we have now. That it was a lot of things that, not to mention, they had crack.
Listen, okay, stuff to help them get through.
Well, no, I'm not saying they did crack.
Listen, I know some parents that relied on that to help them. They were like functioning drug users. Listen, my mom worked with them, and I was like,
Lord, Stacey done said the people. I'm saying,
I'm being transparent.
The crack epidemic also made things difficult, back then. But I mean, now that my mom has gotten older, like, my mom apologized to me last year, y'all, and I promise I can count on one hand how many times. That might have been the only.
Doesn't it shock you? Because you're not expecting it.
But it's like she's understanding now. Like, she's become softer. I think now she really wants a relationship. With her girls. My brother has since passed, but like, she wants a relationship. She's really trying, and she's coming out of this shell where, they were taught, like, you're not friends with your kids. I'm not your friend. I'm your mom.
Right. I'm your mom. Yeah, right. And it's sad because you're trying to build like a safe place for them, because it wasn't safe. And after that moment that I had with my own experience, I never felt safe after that. And it was just a continuous thing and a continuous thing and a continuous thing and different people. And now when I actually share that, she's so broken. But I'm like, when I first tried to tell you, did nothing. So I did nothing. And so when it happened, it became foreign. It became a thing, like, okay, this is happening again, and this is happening again, and this is happening. So it never became like, do I need to tell you? Because when I told you, you did nothing. So there's,
I think what we should do, though, is in our healing.
Right.
Because, some of our parents, they're not going to change. And we haven't even talked about the fathers, and we really can't talk about the fathers because, I mean, I'm building a relationship. I'm reconnecting with my biological father now, but truth be
Right.
told, my biological father wasn't there.
Right.
So we
Most
have to even
households. Go ahead.
we and a lot of times, because you're harder on the parent that's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and but anyway,
Mhm.
so in saying that, in order for us to heal, we have to be able not only to forgive our parents,
Right.
because look, sometimes you're not going to get an I'm sorry, and if you're waiting on them to apologize for some of them, look, it ain't gonna happen.
What
So
happened?
you can't hold your healing up because
Mhm.
you're waiting on someone. It's not going to happen. But then not only forgive, but you also have to give them, extend to them grace.
Grace. Right. And I learned that as an adult now, that I have to give my mom grace. She
Grace.
did the best that she could, and not all things I agree with, but at some point I know deep down in her heart she is sorry. Will I hear that? No, because
Yeah.
sometimes the accountability is not there.
Because
But I
because
think
they
for
were told, like, you don't apologize to a child. What are you apologizing to a child for?
her, yeah.
That's what they were taught.
Hmm.
Like, apologizing to a child makes them somehow on your level,
And
and you're
that's
not.
not. And you're not. I apologize to my kids all the time now because I feel like it's something that'll reassure them, like, oh, mommy knows she was wrong. Hmm.
What I started to do when my boys, after my divorce,
Hmm.
I started doing a lot of just inner reflection,
Hmm.
looking at myself.
Hmm.
And honestly, I didn't like who I was. I saw a lot of the parenting um characteristics that I grew up with.
Hmm.
I didn't know any other way, so
Right.
I just used the way that I was taught, you know, and then other things were going on, but I didn't like who I was. I was angry. I
Hmm.
wasn't happy. My
Right.
patience was short. And me as a mom back then, I did not.
Hmm. Tisha.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. But
Okay. Mhm.
I didn't like that version of myself. And
Right.
so I decided that I wanted to change. So at that time, my boys were in middle school.
Hmm.
My oldest was like just starting high school, and I sat them down.
Right.
And I was like, look, um, I had to apologize to my kids. I remember having a conversation with my oldest son,
Hmm.
and he was saying how he felt like I favored my youngest son over him. He felt like, I really didn't like him. He felt like, I never really had anything nice to say to him. And I'm like, ooh, that was, ooh, shoot. Like that was a lot, because, like, imagine, feeling like your mom doesn't like you, and and so I had to think about what I was doing. And
Hmm.
and one of the things I brought up to him, because at that time, my son was he got into a lot of trouble,
Hmm.
and it was exhausting. Like, every
Right.
time you look, he was into something. And so when he wasn't doing anything, that was like a break for me. But as a parent, if you can
Hmm.
take time out to point out when your kid is doing something wrong, then you can also take time out, and when they're doing something right, you can acknowledge that as well.
As
And
well.
and so I had to apologize to my son, like,
Hmm.
Dag, I'm sorry. But when I said I'm sorry, his eyes lit up.
Right. Like, wow, my mom is apologizing, because that's reassuring. It is so reassuring, because it's like, oh, she did say she was sorry, and she do know she was wrong. And that's a better feeling. So we are the generation that are breaking curses, because my mom never apologizes for any. She apologized to my kids. She'll love, 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 love them to death. But for us, it was never, it was like we continued to try and find validation for an unsatisfied parent, because no matter what we did, we were still in the wrong. So it was just like, okay, so we could do the world for you, but you're still not going to acknowledge that.
I think they learned from their mistakes with these
Right.
grandkids.
They do.
I think with these grandkids, it's their opportunity to do it right.
And at that point, I'm in the corner somewhere like, oh, So now I have to be in my feelings a little bit. I'm not jealous because I love the fact that she loves my kids, but I'm a little bit concerned. Like, wait a minute here now. Hold up.
Where was this?
Up. Where was this at?
Where was this?
And I mean, every parent in that generation I've heard say that their kids would say, you never treated us like this, because there is some sort of semi-resentment. Because it's like, wait a minute, this is what I've been looking for my entire life, and you've never showed me that. I mean, there's been abandonment. There's been, beatings that is just ridiculous. You're like, oh my God. And I can't even yell at my kids, and my mom is heartbroken. And I'm like, I'm just telling them something that they need to hear. You cannot be in a room that's junky or not do your homework or fail a class. It's the same thing you wouldn't want me to do. So why are you so heartbroken because I'm reprimanding them? So I'm glad they have a second chance to fix themselves, but it would have been better so that way I know how to appoint this discipline when it's my time to do it, and you don't feel so heartbroken because I'm only doing it the way you taught me.
And but what if they realized that how they taught us was wrong?
So wrong.
Like they're not going to say I was wrong. That ain't gonna happen. But they're going to show you in action.
Right.
I was wrong. Like I shouldn't have, but once again, like talking about myself, when my kids got out of line, they got whooped.
Yep.
Because that's what I was taught. You were not taught to sit them down and, let's
discuss this. Discussion where?
I'm gonna beat you.
Yep, and that's it. I'm gonna whoop you behind.
and I had to learn that I didn't want my boys to fear me. I wanted them to respect me, but I didn't want my babies to be afraid of me. And I can say there were times where I was afraid of my mom. So the reason why I didn't get out of line was I was scared of her.
Right.
I don't know if that was respect. I don't know if fear and respect go hand in hand.
No, it's a different thing, because if you fear someone, you are terrified. You can respect them, but it's a certain terror that comes behind that. So even though you are respecting them, but you're so fearful of them that you can't even say, hey, hold on, or even try to defend yourself because you're so fearful. So where does the level of, you don't even get the respect. It's not in reverse. It's not in exchange, because you're so fearful that you're shallowing yourself down because you're so afraid. So I could never, the way that I see my sister and brother handle my mom, I don't even think that way to handle her, because there's a level of fear that she has for them. In a sense, they could go, and she like, oh, and I could go, and she's like, well, wait a minute. I'm like, hold on, wait. I'm like, you can't, this is the same thing. So it's so different. And now I find myself falling victim of it because I have Cheyenne and Dorian, and everybody know my kids. And I see Cheyenne being the running over and Dorian's being the kid, I'm the respectful older kid, and I'm the second child. I'm going to do what I want. And I have to constantly, we bump heads because I'm steady revving it in. But ask me to be on the phone and I'm reprimanding her while my mom's on there. She's having a whole meltdown. Well, what did she do? What happened? I'm like, the same thing she always do. This is not right. So I can never discipline my kids in front of my mom, because it's like I'm the bad parent. I'm the evil villain, and I'm just like, how is that? So,
and maybe, like I said, maybe it's finding that balance.
Yeah.
And, because now that, what they call it, gentle parenting.
Oh, where? Because I can't do it.
I try, but then you got to let them know.
Right.
What is it? I ain't a killer, but don't push me.
Push me, exactly. And we didn't get gentle parenting. We didn't get none of that. As soon as you did something, it was like, find what I'm gonna beat your behind with. That's the gentle parenting. So if it's the switch, the belt, whatever, you better hope whatever I get ain't gonna tear you behind apart. So that was not gentle parenting, and that feared us because we knew it was gonna get our behind whooped. I mean, you remember those times before we wrap up, we could stay outside all day long. No parent knew what we was doing in those streets now.
Wait. Me and my husband, we were talking about like bikes. Everybody wanted a bike because a bike was your key to freedom, because you could go anywhere on these bikes as long as you were back before the street lights came on. You were good. Nobody asked you where you was. Won't no telephones or nothing for them to track you or anything like that. You would be on your bike in a whole nother city.
Somewhere somebody's house, up in a train track, up in this bandit. I'm like, you doing though? I mean, and I used to do the most. We had those games we used to play. We out there playing them games with our friends and all the boys around, and we just out there used to go down to the lake, and you go down to your creek in your area. You're on the tire, and you're just doing all kinds of stuff, and nobody checked you on that, but let you walk in that house pregnant. What happened? I'm like, you sent me out in the streets. You told me I was go back to the street lights came on.
I was too scared.
To do anything.
My mama won't playing.
You sent me out in the streets to go do whatever it is you want me to do, and now I come back and I done committed a little sin, and all of a sudden the whole hell break loose. So I don't know. This show I had fun tonight just talking about this, because it kind of just opened up some doors that a lot of people, I hope tonight we were able to help some people kind of get past some things or kind of understand.
I think if like I said, if we can understand that a lot of what was passed down were behaviors that they had to survive.
Right.
They had to. How else would you survive slavery? How else would you survive Jim Crow? Like, you had to have certain characteristics, and the only thing the big issue is that they didn't get help. They didn't get therapy. After all of that trauma, they got nothing. And so they had to figure out life on their own. And unfortunately, these toxic behaviors, it kept getting passed down. And I believe, and I'm gonna keep saying it, we're the generation we're shifting, we're breaking generational curses. And sometimes it's gonna seem hard. Anytime you're breaking a curse, you're coming up against opposition, it's going to feel hard.
Hard. It is.
So much is going to come at you because you're doing something different. But I just want to encourage somebody today to keep going.
Keep going, because it's something that it's not anything we can help, right? Because we're put in a position that even our generation, we still have to be strong. Even if we want to break, we still have to be strong. And we're always put in a position we have to get it done, and we have to make it work, and we have to. But guess what? The advantage that we have that most people did not have is that we do have places we can go to get help. We do have opportunities to get therapy. Let's not shy against it, because it works. Even if you don't have therapy to go to, find other ways to outsource, and don't bottle up your feelings, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make you, it can make you an ugly person on the inside. When you have it all bottled up in you, you can't let it out nowhere. And that's what I think our parents went through. So we don't know how many times they were behind the door crying, or sitting in their car after work because they're exhausted, or they're wanting to give up and walk away. I mean, now in this time, there's parents getting up and walking away. They're walking away.
There are mothers who are,
bye, I ain't dealing with this. I'm going to put you in a group home. I had a girlfriend that dropped her son off at a group home, and she went to Germany. Just like that. She didn't care. She said he was giving too many problems, and she left. So it's in a sense where our advantages are different to where they didn't have that. They had to stick with the kids, whether the fathers were around, whoever. They may have not had a village. We have villages. You know what I'm saying? We have girlfriends that'll say, hey, drop your kids off here. I don't remember my mom having too many of that. She had to always be with us. We didn't have too many vacations. Now, every time you turn around, somebody on a cruise, a boat, in Disney, hotels. You know? So
that's why I say, even though, look, if we survived it, I think if you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, you need a badge, right? We survived. But give them grace.
Yeah.
give them grace. And one thing I can say, like I'm gonna, shout my mom out. Like we may, have had our differences, and
Right.
there may have been some things that I'm like, Mom, but what she built though, y'all were raised by, I was raised by Sherry, and what what
Listen.
she built,
Mm-hmm.
I could some things have been different,
Right. Yeah.
but who she created,
solid. It's a foundation, and I'm really thankful for it because I can stand on my own 2 feet. And I have my mom to thank for that. I don't go around, I don't have to venture out too much because she said, you can do it. Yeah. You can make it work. You know how. And that always was instilled in me. I mean, Tisha, this was such a great show. Oh, I want to mention this weekend, Saturday, there's Uplift and Inspire. So if anyone want to still feel like they want to get more uplifted and inspired, Tanelia Jones, she's on Facebook, my girl. She's having a event. It's called Uplift. She's the CEO of Uplift and Inspire. Is self-care, all about self-care this for the month of February. And so we're banging it out with this event. If you want to go to her page on Facebook, Tanelia Jones. She's also on here. I'm going to put her name in the chat so that way you can have it. And you just go to her page and she has the ways to go ahead and purchase the ticket. So I'm putting it here. Anybody want to find her on Facebook? I'm hoping that I got her E's and I's in the right place. Okay. So yes, this is an extra to go and still feel like you want to be self-love. So now we got past this tonight. You're like, I still need a little bit more love. I'm going to go here to Uplift and Inspire event and get some more love this weekend. So yes, if you want to go to her show, her event, she's still accepting tickets. It's Saturday from 1 to 4. You don't want to miss it. It's a really good event to help us finish out this month of self-care. Letitia, this has been a great show. You are always so awesome. She is the CEO of Moving Mountains Ministry, and she has the podcast Circle of Peace. I mean, we got to do a part 2. Maybe you could do. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm coming back with the Circle of Peace. I'm changing my days to Monday, but I'm revamping Moving Mountains. I'm revamping the Circle of Peace. So it's going to be a lot of different topics.
Yeah.
But I'm just. Thank you, Stacey, for having me. Yes. And I just love talking about these topics, but also, like I said, I just want us all to heal together. That's it.
See, and we are healing. I'm telling you, this has been great. And you brought a lot of things to educated viewers tonight, which is wonderful because there's a lot of things that I didn't understand. So you taught me. So now I'm about to go out there like, girl, did you hear about the Jim Crow generator? Like, I'm ready to lead on the education, okay? Because the lack of knowledge is the ignorance of it, of not knowing. And this helped me to better understand, not to be so angry with mom, forgive her and move on, because it's something she probably couldn't help. So I thank everyone for coming and watching tonight. This was a very special episode for me. And I hope that if you're able to watch it, that you learn something from it. And maybe if you're having a problem with your parent that was born in that era, that now you can heal from it and maybe go and have brunch or something to sit down and talk and feel better about the situation. It was great. And if you're ever in Hampton, I'm downtown Hampton, Seychelles Essence Spa. I offer so many great services and skincare products. You come and check me out. And I just want you all to have a great night. And thank you so much for coming and watching. You have been unplugged.